Because they stand on a wall and they say nothing's gonna hurt you tonight. Not on my watch.
And so on. In spite of your expertise, many of you will not successfully negotiate this program.
And as the Greek philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus would have said, change is the only constant. Singapore knows this. You know this.
I want my daughter to have as much opportunity as my son. To which the leader of the opposition says,
It's our turn to stop and to listen.
Blessed, they work so beautifully that we are saved thousands of children, and thousands of children have found their home where they are loved.
I had the opportunity to go with my soldiers. I wanted to go. I came back. I got promoted to major. My mom had a stroke a week later. It was a lot. I wanted to be here to show people that you can make it. You can survive. I don't know how I did, but I did. And you know, I use a cane, but it's nothing. You know, I could still be in a wheelchair. I could have had, you know, brain hemorrhage or nothing. Nothing happened internally. It was all just broken bones.
Große Freude. Es war mir eine Ehre. Herzlichen Dank.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming to us again, Talk About Life by me, Vicky Esther, in all my podcast catchers, and also you can catch the shows of this series, Women's Leadership for Today, the Annette Whittenberger Show, and right beside me, either on my left or on my right, wherever you call it, wherever you see from your screen, she's here with us, and you can catch her on this show on Lifestyle TV channel by Dr. Moby on all American paid networks, and also Apple TV, Google, Amazon, and all.
I'm so excited to be here. So thank you so much.
And you know, this show, I'd like to tell every viewers, listeners who are tuning in for the first time to the show. Tell us about you, yourself, and your rise to being a major, and you know, Singapore has got such a close friendship. It's an ally of the Americans, and it's an ally of the.
Yes, thank you. Gosh, so I was raised. Well, I like you said, I'm a mom. I have a 18-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. I am a military spouse of 23 years. And I served 17 years, 4 months in the Army. But before all that, I was raised in a small town, a small city called Simi Valley, California. That's in the southern part. It's about 45 minutes of south of Los Angeles. And, you know, I was just in I didn't want to say a bubble, but I didn't know a lot of what was going on in the world. My mom was a single parent for a short time, and she raised my brother and I. And I went to an all-girl Catholic high school from grade 7 all the way to 12. And so anything outside of that was just like, wow, you know, it was just so interesting to me. So when I had a friend from high school enlist in the Army, I was fascinated because that wasn't heard of in our all-girls school. I did go as far as talking to a recruiter, and I had him come to the house, and I was like all in. I was 17, almost 18 years old, but I got scared. I wasn't ready, and I said, okay, no, I can't do it. I can't sign these paperwork. So I told myself that wherever I went to college, I wanted to train to see if I would like it. And so I went to community college first because I wasn't ready for the big leagues. And I did that. And when I applied to Arizona State University, they had a reserve officer training.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I just forgot what the C stood for. Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC program, to where you can train. So I decided, let me try it out. My father wasn't very, he was very traditional, and he didn't believe that females should join. So that was one reason why I thought I need to do this to prove it to myself and to prove it to my family, because they were very concerned, which is, rightfully so. And so I went to ASU, I did the training, and my time came to where they said, okay, are you going to do this or not? And I said, okay, let's do it. And in my mind, I thought I'll just do 4 years and I'll be done. But in my senior year of college, I met my husband, and I thought, and I ended up, every time he progressed, I decided, well, I'm just going to keep doing it too. So we just followed each other all over the place. And that's how
story.
That's how I ended up staying so long. But it was difficult because there was a time in 2007, I believe, where I was tired of being feeling so just feeling like I had to continue to prove myself. There were good and there were bad days, but it was overwhelming because I had my daughter was 7 at the time and my son was 5. And it was hard. It's hard to raise children when you're both serving. And, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I wanted to get out. It didn't happen that way. God had other plans. So I stayed in and I continued to fight my way through it. Like I was very good at suppressing my feelings. If I was overwhelmed or stressed, I used anger as my coping mechanism, and it wasn't very healthy, but that was the only way I knew. That was the only way I knew how, because you just didn't talk about that. Everybody that was serving, you were tough and fearless and all these things that you were supposed to be.
So you were already, at what point were you serving like professionally already? When you had your children, I mean, it's like, I can't imagine how did you like manage having like the first child, then the second one, and then still doing 100%, and then still like taking care of your husband in the home, and then yourself, and then the military people.
I mean, it started from when I landed in Germany. I was 4 months pregnant with my daughter, but that was my journey. Like I was a soldier. And so as soon as I commissioned to an officer, July 1st of 99, that was it. And so there was no looking back, really. You just did it. You raised your kids, you went to work. That's what they expected you to do, and so that's what we did. So and every time, every assignment after that, after duty station, every post that you go to after that, that's just what you did. There was no I mean, you could get out. There are several soldiers who get out because they don't have the support system to take care of their kids. And I understand that. And it's very hard and it's very sad because they want to serve, but they don't have their family there to help them. They can't afford childcare. They can't afford a nanny. They can't do all those things. So I, as my children got older and my jobs got more difficult, I understood that, gosh, how do they do this? How did I even do this? I was very lucky to have people at the daycare centers or a neighbor that could watch my kids. But even that, as parents, we don't just want to leave our kid with anybody. So there's always that stress of, oh my gosh, do I know them? How well do I know them? How long will I leave my kid there? It's just like it's so hard. It's so hard. But go ahead.
Exactly. And you actually have so much layers of stories that reflect in there. So I would like to rewind there for some of these, so for our viewers and our listeners. So you got married with your husband, and then shortly after, you got your posting in Germany, pregnant with your first child. Tell us this chronological events, right, that kind of led you to your mid-career and then to the top career. I mean, when we fast forward, I mean, things do look fast and action, but I'm very sure there are a lot of markers, a lot of milestones, a lot of challenges, particularly a woman. I can't imagine you being pregnant with your first child and then you delivering that and then having like to take care of your work. I mean, I don't know, you've got how many paid months, paid leave, how many months have you got for maternity? I mean, tell us about that marker from you getting married and then going it full force and then having your posting into Germany and then being pregnant and then delivering your first child.
Yes. Okay. So
wow.
we
that must be real drama, right? You should make this into a movie. So, ladies and gentlemen, producers from Hollywood, please note this down.
It definitely could be a movie. So we got married. It's funny. We got married through the Justice of the Peace in 1998 because he was about to leave to go to Germany, and I needed to graduate college. He left. I graduated college, and then I'm sorry, no, I didn't graduate college yet. I still had another 9 months to go. I planned a wedding while he was in Germany. He came back. We got married in a church. He left, and then I went to Missouri for 10 months to do my training. And then, so he's in Germany, I'm in Missouri. I went to visit him for a few weeks in the December, came back, found out I was pregnant. And I was like, well, okay. And I had to continue my training. And then it was time for me to go to Germany. So I flew there when I was 4 months pregnant, and I was 24, 25.
Wow.
And you would think some people think you're all grown when you're 25, right? Like that's what you're supposed to be. But I was still young, and I hadn't left the country by myself ever. And so I was in a foreign country by myself, pregnant, crying, hormonal. My husband was in the field for a month, so I didn't get to see him. It was just an emotional roller coaster. But when I had my daughter 5 months later, we only get 6 weeks off. That was back then. So 20 years ago, we only got 42 days of leave to have our child, to make sure they're taken care of, and then you go back to work.
So you had your child back in America?
I had her in Germany.
Wow. So the conception and then the delivery, everything done there. Annette, for a woman, I think a lot of married women plus women who are dealing with the pressures of a professional job or whatever job that they have got, they will really relate to what you say. Having a child and going back to work, two things: psychological, physiological. Psychological, how did you manage? I mean, sometimes your husband's not away, is away, you're alone, and you have this biological changes that you need to deal with. How did you do that? And physiological, you're living, you need to get the child ready, you need to get the the baby bed and then the milk and and all that stuff. I mean, that's your first child. Tell us. I mean, I can't believe how did you manage when you were in a foreign country and oh wow.
My first initial thought is I don't know how I did it, but when I don't, I think it's funny because they say that moms have superpowers, right? Well, I
Wow.
think that's what happens to us when we have kids, is that
Yeah.
you go into this fight or flight mode. Like
Wow.
I didn't have any other option. I had to find childcare and I had to go back to work. But and back then I didn't know what postpartum depression was. I didn't know any of that, but I know that I went through some of that because I didn't know how I was going to do this. I didn't know who I could trust with watching my 6-week-old. I mean, that's crazy.
Wow.
But it just happened because I had no other choice. I couldn't go back and tell my boss, I need 5 months off. I need more time off.
Yeah.
That wasn't, you either find it or you get out of the Army. And I didn't want to get out. This was my life now, and I wanted to do it. So in Germany, I got really lucky. The daycare center there had 2 amazing women who watched both my kids, but they really grew close to my daughter. So there are.
So you were there for a long time.
I was there for 3 years in Germany.
Oh, wow. Wow. So then you had your second child, who is your boy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did. After my daughter was 18 months old, I had a miscarriage. And
I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I'm going to be honest. I don't think I ever really processed it because I had to go to work.
Yes.
I had to go back to work, and that was it. And then, a year later, I had my son, and we were getting ready to leave Germany. So he was 3 months old when we left. And it was just like, it was just so fast paced. It feels like it just went by so fast because you just have to keep going. You just have to keep, moving along. So, my husband, he did try to help. I don't want to say I did it all by myself, but his job was a little more intense than mine. So he did have to travel a lot. He deployed a small deployments to Poland or Belgium or wherever, but he was gone, 3 to 5 months each time. And so I did have to do it by myself then. And that's when I think it was hard because I tried to be so tough. I think we all try to be so tough that we don't want to ask for help.
So when you left Germany was 3 years later. So how many years were you already with the Army from then? When you first joined and then when you left Germany, it's about 7, 8 years?
No, that was my first 3 years.
Oh, that was your first.
Yes,
because you got married and you go and
yes.
And when you were there, that was your personal life, and because that was your first kind of foreign posting, you must also be struggling with easing in into your professional job.
Yeah, I had to.
How did it happen?
I had to figure out how to be a wife and a mom and a soldier all at the same time. All at the same time.
Yeah, and that happens to a lot of people when all these bullets just come and you kind of like just have to fight it off, right? Yeah. Were there any, now looking back, for someone who is facing this, do you have any kind of revelation that someone who is facing what you had faced, the bullets just keep coming, you just kind of having to keep fending? Is there something that, when you reflect, yes, these were the 3 things I think put me through those times, or let me rise above the occasion?
Gosh, I was very fortunate enough to have my mom. She was able to come to Germany to help me for a little while. The other was I really had to voice my, I had to be vocal. I had to tell my boss that there were certain times where I could not stay late. I had to go pick up my child. I had to do these things because, you know, a lot of us won't do that. And there were times where I didn't do that. And I, you know, looking back at it now, I don't know how I would have done it without God. I'm serious.
Wow.
I don't know how. I don't know how people get through this. It's so hard.
You can't get through life without that.
No, you can't. And, you know, he gives us so many challenges that we don't realize why, what is it for, you know, but somehow we made it. I really truly sit here and go, I don't know how we did it. It was so hard because I was there when 9/11 happened. And so everything changed, and I had to spend the night on post sometimes because I was part of a guard force. Yeah. And so where was our children going to go? You know, so we have to think about those things. And that was really hard. It makes you think and puts things in perspective. So there's just so many things in my first 3 years that, you know, changed the course of the rest of my journey. So just crazy. So crazy.
And because you kind of powered through, right? You kind of powered through those things that come your way, just knock down the wall and just get through it and just get through it again. How much of it do you think was nature and nurture?
A lot of it, because we will do whatever it takes for our family, you know, whether it's to protect them or not. I did whatever I needed to do to make sure that I could still have my career, that my kids were taken care of, that my husband can continue on. It's just all those things. I always had to make sure that it was possible. And so I had to do whatever I needed to do to make it happen. I think that's a lot of us do that in some way, or, you know, somehow, some way we all do what it takes, what we need to do.
So that translates to your professional life in the Army, because you know, as you're going up this rise, you know, your inner self, the inner strength, that the strong woman in you, the power, the girl power, the boss power, you kind of like shine through. So I guess the people must have seen it. I mean, tell us and describe your this journey that kind of like put you through to higher positions in the Army, and then leading to so many of your missions. Tell us about that, Annette.
I think, yes, the first 3 years was an eye-opener. So it did help me through the rest of my career. I was very lucky to have leaders see potential in me because I was willing to work hard and make sacrifices and things like that. So which led to 2005, I was given an opportunity to command soldiers. And that's not for my branch, which is it was chemical. We didn't get many opportunities to be a commander. So I was given an opportunity to be a commander, and I did that for 2 years, and that's not very that doesn't happen all the time. So I did. I had a great boss. I had great leaders who trusted me with that. So, which led me to deploy to Iraq. And so I was a commander that took my troops to Iraq, and it was amazing because I think because I'm a mom, I treated my soldiers almost like my kids. So I had that nurturing effect to where I always made sure they were taken care of. And I cared a lot, you know. I tried to be tough, but I also tried to be caring, and that's how I was. Just from having my own kids, that's how I ended up being, throughout the rest of my career. I just care.
Yeah.
Some say that I cared too much or I was just too nice, but the soldiers that I still keep in contact with, they actually told me that they appreciated that, and so I knew that I was doing something.
you definitely, because you're talking about human interaction, staying together, having the faith together, and going to a foreign place. Your lives are tied. And for us who are civilians and for the rest of the world, we have not been in the military. Could you paint us a picture? How does this hierarchy look like when you go up to this force and you're taking care of the men? And I think men means men and women, right? They are your men. And then tell us about this hierarchical structure, how it looks like, and then what kind of reward and punishment and authority do you have in that position that is legitimately yours?
Absolutely. So I had a company which was about 100 soldiers. So there's myself, which is the commander, and then I have my right-hand man or woman, which is called the first sergeant. So I was the officer there, the enlisted senior non-commissioned officer. We both are in charge of all of our men and women, our soldiers. We are authorized to punish them if they mess up, if they're caught. So, you know, sometimes you have
disciplinary problems.
Yeah, disciplinary problems, drugs. Sometimes that happens, drinking too much. But we do fall under our battalion commander. So he's in charge of all the companies, all of them. There was like 5 companies. When it was a very serious punishment, we did have to go through him to, you know, talk to him about how we were going to handle it. So for the most part, we were able to take care of things in-house, but he was the senior leader who we had to tell everything to. And we went to him for guidance, and he was like our dad, you know, who would try to keep us together and teach us and mold us. And because we're still some of us I hadn't even turned 30 yet. I think I was 28, 29. I was 29. And so we went to him for guidance and how to be a better leader, because he had already done all that. So,
tell us, I mean, this is such a drama, right? And someone should be writing the script. Let's slow down for the writers. No, and then I really want to know, like, you being a woman, like you said that it's really quite not the common thing that someone is being appointed as a commander, particularly for a woman, right? And then you are taking charge of 100 people. Tell us this sudden growth that you need to go through. I mean, it's such a reflection of a corporate world, right? Suddenly someone just kind of like being promoted to take care of like 100 people, and then they've got lots of things like milestone checking of their performance, the key indicators, the discipline, the falling in, and the briefing, and all this standard procedures. I mean, when you from there go up to there, tell us this learning curve within yourself, and how did you feel sitting in that position comfortably? What does it take?
I was nervous as heck. I was scared. I've always wanted that position. So when it was given to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. And I had to learn that they are their own individuals. Some of them 18 years old, some of them, in their 20s, but they're young. And so I had to be along with my other staff members. We had to be their role models. We were the ones they looked up to on whether they wanted to stay in or not. continue their service,
Wow.
their continue their service, or how they're going to act. Because
Yes.
if you don't show up to
Yes.
an important meeting, then they're not going to show up, because they're going to look at you and say, well, our commander wasn't there, so we don't have to be there. So it's, you are that reflection. They're going to see you just as you are a parent. Your kids are going to do what you do. That's how it was. And so I had to make sure that I was always that positive light. And it's hard. I wanted to learn about each and every one of my soldiers, because you never know what they're going through. Family problems. I mean, there was so many things going on. I had to make sure I was present, and it is stressful. It really was, but I loved it because I wanted to.
That is that natural leadership in you coming out, right? Because you loved it.
I loved it because I always try to teach somebody something that will be positive.
Yeah, you felt like that was made for me, right?
Right.
Yeah. A couple of quick questions, because I'm so intrigued. We got to nail this down in writing, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, now I'm looking at the demi Moore, like going up that ladder, right?
Oh my gosh, she was a beast.
So, when you go up there, a couple of things. There is 100 men, women below you. You have to manage them, morale, delinquencies, performance, cohesion, making sure like they follow the order without too much punishment, etc. Right? It's a lot to take in for 100 men and women, even though you're say in the same company, right, in the same group, but you still want to make sure that they wanna when you give them instructions, you want them to be convinced, be persuaded, and not to be doing it just for the show.
Right.
How do you handle all these different elements of management?
That was hard too. So I in my position, it was not the norm to always be involved in their business. That's what my non-commissioned officers did. They each have their own set of soldiers they take care of, because I can't manage all of them. They each have their 5 or 6. So it was up to them. I told them what I wanted, and it was up to them to make sure it happened. There were certain instances where I did have to get involved, especially when it was before a weekend came up. I would go and tell them, look, it's the weekend, you get 4 days off, do not drink and drive, do not, all these things. That was my job to tell them. But my staff, they had to make sure that it was enforced. But what I did when we were in Iraq was I tried to, at least once a month, maybe twice a month, I tried to have a little party in our area, just to bring everybody together so that we can laugh or talk just about anything, because the stressors of being away from our families was hard. And so I tried to do that, and it worked out. Not everybody showed up all the time, but for the most part, I know that it helped.
Yeah, and when you were posted to Iraq, that was post September 11, right?
Yes, yes, that was post.
But before the Operation Desert Storm.
Yes.
Or Operation Freedom.
Operation Enduring Freedom was after that. This was Operation Iraqi Freedom. OIF.
Yeah. So so when you were there, you were sent there. You know that there already was tension.
Yes.
And you are like taking care of this 100 men and women. I mean, I look at it from an external point of view. It's almost like you saying, okay, we are going there or we are there, and their situation or their fate is really so much dependent on the situation, the uncertainties.
Yes.
How did you handle that? And also having that fate tied together, and also this crisis that's about to happen. And also managing the people's expectations. You know, something is happening, something is happening, something is coming closer, it's coming closer. To me, it's that was the moment, and you were the woman at that point.
Yes. Yes, we had day-to-day operations, but there was time when we had to go on missions, and I had to make sure my soldiers were trained. We still had to do training in Iraq. We still had to go on missions, and I had to make sure that each and every person was in the right mindset to do it.
Yes.
And that was definitely something that I never thought I would have to do, but
yes,
I tried to be at every mission that they went on. Although I couldn't go on it with them all the time, I did go on some. But I had to make sure that I had a really amazing female, we call her a gunner. She was the one on top of the vehicle who was in charge of the gun. And so, you know, things like that is like, wow. I mean, I had amazing soldiers, but we had soldiers that were not in the right mindset because they were having family problems back home. So, you know, it's things like that that you have to consider, like, well, should he go on this mission? You know, what do we do? You know, and I really tried to, oh gosh, I just really try to comfort them. And I did. I was just such a mom. I couldn't help it. But yeah, there's just so many things that you have to think
there's
about.
so many elements when you're talking about, you know, going there. You know, when we watched CNN, I think everyone was gripped onto the television, and I'm so. It's such a I mean, to me, it's such an honor to have you be able to talk. That just tell us whatever you feel like disclosing at all, to the level where you're comfortable with. You know, when we, as the viewers, were watching the news, can you imagine? Maybe you're already there, right? And we're watching the news, and we see these army young men and women in that really dusty environment. Away from home, and sometimes you know, they were interviewed, you know, they a couple of men probably receiving a letter from home. You know, in those times not everyone had emails or phones, etc. at that time, but you know, receiving letters, and it was such an emotional time. It could be heart-wrenching because you're talking about people divorced from the comforts of home. You're talking about going to a third world country, really in the dust and the dirt, and not only having to deal with the emotional stress, being away, and also because everyone was young, and also the physiological stresses, because you don't have that McDonald's that you want to have, you know, the burger or the fries. Right. And there must have been a lot of humanistic times whereby it touches that soul, that why is like, you know, there's a fear that sets in, that discomfort, you know, that's kind of dissonance. You know, that's why that made people who tried to keep peace great people, because they sacrificed their lives. I mean, they could be out back home taking a walk in Las Vegas, the street, and having their parties and drinking their beer. Why do they need to be there? You know what I'm trying to say? So that makes that sacrifice real. When you see it on television, it's no more the Hollywood thing. You really see it, and that was something that people like us, when we watch it, it could be really heart-wrenching, because you see these young men and women trying to defend freedom. And some of them, Ralph Ave himself, he told me, like, there are people who lose their lives, injured, etc. And you being the woman on top of your men, and women, you must have gone through a lot of kind of psychological journey yourself.
Yes, the military tries very hard to give us those talks before we go, and then before we come back home, and then when we come back home. They try to tell us all these changes that could happen to us. And there were times when I was over there that I just didn't know how. I still was worried about home, but there wasn't a lot that I could do because I wasn't there. And so that was very hard. That was very hard to deal with. I couldn't take care of everything like I did before. And then coming back home was very hard. As much as, I was happy to be back home, the stressors were different, and it was very overwhelming, and it was very hard to adjust. And people expect you to be ready, and you're home now, and let's do this. And it's like, no, I need time to decompress. So it's just so
well said.
It is. It's hard. It's really hard. And so I see why there are so many, why so many soldiers are just not, they don't know how to do that, because, the military could tell you one thing, but everybody copes differently.
Yeah, and Annette, I want to bring your experience to the corporate world. I talked to a lot of people, and I had this series of interviews where I talked to business people during 2020. It was so hard for the company for the first lockdown that went on indefinitely in some countries, right? We didn't know when you're going to be out. And I think a lot of corporations really struggled because you're looking at a crisis that just hit in the middle of the night. And they were dealing with decisions, with lives of people, because they're talking about retrenchment. If they don't retrench, the company is going to die, and everybody will sink in the boat that kind of like just sinks in. It's either you offload some people, you offload the goods, and then at least you survive, and probably in time to come, the people can get up again. So it was a lot of crisis management. You're dealing with people, you're dealing with people's minds, you're dealing with people's livelihoods, and people are crying and they're telling you, no, I need to keep my job because I've got babies waiting for me, and bosses or corporate leaders, they're saying that I don't know when this is going to even stop, because we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know what, Annette, we're still in the pandemic 20 months into this.
Yes.
Right. And that is the time whereby, even when I talked to a general manager of one of the largest expositions, they needed exposition foot traffic to come to their shows, whatever is it, is a car show, it's a media release. They needed the foot traffic, and immediately he had to retrench people. And he said it was so tough for him. He kind of like cried, and I know he had to face the people who cried, women, men, because if it doesn't get them loaded, the company is not going to exist the next day, right? And you're talking about this war that we are actually fighting in some companies still. What are the takeaways for crisis management for a leader looking at, a corporate world, for them like yourself in a position whereby they handle 100 workers, to be in the position of being still logical, not getting the emotion, and still making clear what she's doing in the midst of the total blur?
Right. What was interesting to me, a few weeks ago, I spoke to some government officials, and we were talking about the mental health aspect in that type of position, because especially during this pandemic, the workers, the employees don't know how to handle it, and they turn to different coping mechanisms that might not be healthy. What I think is the most important thing to have right now is I don't want a therapist, a counselor, someone in that corporation. they need to have someone that these employees can turn to, because right now they don't have anywhere to turn to, and they're going home and they're taking it out on their family, or they're drinking, or whatever the case. And so when I was talking to these government officials, they have the resource now to help the employees have an outlet. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do right now, is to have an outlet. If you're back at work or you're not, there needs to be that person you could talk to, because we don't know how to deal with all this. You could lose your job, or you still have to go to work, but it's not the same. So how do I handle all this? It's a lot. And not a lot of people know how to talk about it, because they don't want to be seen as the weak link. So you're dealing with all of that. So I think more corporations need to have that resource for them to turn to right now. If you're going to go back to work, then have that. If you're not going to go back to work, you still have that resource for them, because we're not okay. So many people are not okay, and they're alone, and they don't know how to express that.
And you are bringing your leadership to your business now, a wild ride called Life. I see you trademarking it, getting it registered, and went to your website. Wonderful content there. You now being the CEO of your company, and I'm looking at you expanding your different projects, different line of products, and your podcast also. And also, you doing a lot of sponsorship as a company for the good causes that you believe in. Tell me, what's that philosophy that you hold as a CEO of the company?
My whole reasoning for this and what I do is to provide hope to others. I had a soldier who had this great acronym. I don't know if she made it up or what, but the word hope. Hold on, pain ends. And so
pain ends.
Hold on, pain ends. Yes. Wow. So keep holding on. You're gonna get better. And
hold on, pain ends.
Yes. I thought it was amazing. And so I love that, and I try to tell people that too, that we need to continue this conversation. In order to help other people and to show that we can make it. And so that's what I want. That's what I've been trying to do. It's just, I will have the hard talk if I need to, as long as it helps save someone's life.
And before we go, because I had about almost 15 minutes of your time, wonderful time that we have, I would like you to talk about your book launch. I think that occurred yesterday. Tell us about the success of your book launch, A World Between Two Lives.
Thank you very much. So my book, actually, it launched, or was released June 5th, but I am trying to spread the word, and I will go to wherever I can that I have access to have a book signing, because I'd like to be there present to talk to people about why I wrote it and what my story is. And so yesterday was amazing, because I did see soldiers I hadn't seen since 2000. So 21 years, and we're still strong, because that's what military family is, and I love it. So sometimes we just don't know who we are inspiring, who's watching, who's listening, who's reading. And I saw that yesterday, that there were people that were they've been following me, and they were just happy to be there. And I was just so ecstatic. So, and
by the way, you look really good with that new lipstick.
Thank you so much, you guys.
And the lip liner. Well, that looked really good. That looked really good on you.
Thank you. I made a post yesterday for anyone who's listening. I'm not a really big lipstick wearer at all, ever. And so yesterday there was a store right behind me, and I said, let me go check it out. And so I'm trying this new thing, and
you deserve it, girl.
I'm so used to not having that, and I said, let me try it. So you never know what something so
You
small
deserve.
can do for you.
You deserve everything. And you know,
Thank you.
Annette, thank you for sharing this first episode that we peel off the first layer of this onion. We're going to have more exciting, dramatic stories, and you know, writers should tune in, and Annette, you should get the writers to tune in and watch your show, because they should be the one jotting down your points and bringing and flashing every turning point out for the big movie.
Thank you so much.
And I'm looking at you as the producer behind the scene, and then you've got to have the me more there.
Oh my God. You know, that would be a dream come true. Even if Demi cannot be there, it would be a dream come true.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I think a lot of people will want to be there. I think you did ask, you know, who would want to be your testimonial to say that you've helped them. I believe you have helped a lot of people. You have helped me, myself, to even in ways that you don't know and you don't see it. You know, you being there, I think, just being there and being yourself, just being that light. I mean, the light doesn't need to do anything, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that by itself does a lot of things, right? Just being that light, I mean, it kind of like makes everything light up. So with that, on that note, Annette, I want to thank you from the depths of my heart. I would like to invite you to wrap this up in the last 15 seconds or so.
Thank you, everybody who's been watching this, and I thank you very much for even making this happen, because you know, I never dreamed that I would be in this position. So for anybody else, you know, you can always reach out to me. You're not alone, and just start the conversation. Let's continue to help more people.
Yes, and this show, Women's Leadership for Today, the Annette Whittenberger show, and we're going to funnel more concepts of leadership for women from her life to give us some of these real tips. We're not talking about the textbook leadership, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking to Annette here. Hello, ladies. Now you tune in and you sit down and you listen up. Annette is here, ma'am. We better listen up and we better watch your show. Right, so Annette, thank you so much, and thank you for just being here. And we're gonna have like more topics coming up, making hard decisions, managing men and women. Is there any difference between male leadership and female leadership? And you know, a lot of things about punishment and reward, soldiers' morale, corporate morale. I'm gonna give all this to Annette. Thank you so much, Annette. I'm going to come back to you. Now, don't run away, ma'am. So we're going to follow you through to the end.
Thank you very much.
Right, this is 24th October 2021, 11:06 p.m. Singapore time, and which is 10 a.m. American Central Time, wherever you all are. And Annette is actually in Texas. So from America and Singapore, broadcasting to the rest of the world. Thanks and bye.
Because they stand on a wall and they say nothing's gonna hurt you tonight. Not on my watch.
And so on. In spite of your expertise, many of you will not successfully negotiate this program.
And as the Greek philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus would have said, change is the only constant. Singapore knows this. You know this.
I want my daughter to have as much opportunity as my son. To which the leader of the opposition says,
It's our turn to stop and to listen.
Blessed the work so beautifully that we are saved thousands of children, and thousands of children have found their home where they are loved.
I had the opportunity to go with my soldiers. I wanted to go. I came back. I got promoted to major. My mom had a stroke a week later. It was a lot. I wanted to be here to show people that you can make it, you can survive. I don't know how I did, but I did. And, you know, I use a cane, but it's nothing, you know. I could still be in a wheelchair. I could have had, you know, brain hemorrhage or nothing. Nothing happened internally. It was all just broken bones.
Große Freude. Es war mir eine Ehre. Herzlichen Dank.